Time for another quick crappy review. I don't have a lot of time for this review since I got 2 other videos in the works, but so far I've reviewed every live action Star Wars show and I can't let this tradition die, so I'm here to do the review. So the most recent Star Wars show is called Obi-Wan Kenobi, following Obi-Wan Kenobi, and somehow Disney has gotten the whole gang back together. Ewan McGregor is back, Hayden Christensen is back, you have the same production workflow that works so well for The Mandalorian, you have the same director coming in from The Mandalorian that made the 2 best episodes of that show, and this show still manages to be completely empty and void of life. In an absolutely bizarre turn of fate, the Star Wars show that looked like it had the most passion behind it ended up being the one that I think is easily the worst live action Star Wars show they've done. I mean, maybe it is more consistent than
in the Book of Boba.
That show at least had 2 stellar episodes that I loved. This show is very consistent, but when every episode is just about the same, they're all fine. I think I'm gonna like the show that had higher highs and lower lows more. Now, what I will say about the show is that an actual good structure for a story is here, with Inquisitors hunting down Jedi and Obi-Wan Kenobi feeling guilty until he actually has to go after Leia after she's been taken by Inquisitors. That story leads to a very fast-paced and character-focused show. The problem is that story that I just told you about, the main plot, is too short. So they have to stuff other stories in here, like him helping a little rebellion and him constantly having to break Leia out of prison. It makes the show too long. That extra padding leads to a feeling like there isn't a huge fear of the Inquisitors and a lack of presence from Vader, while there also being too many moments feel long and pointless. The show is just way too long and bloated. Look, episode 1, Leia is taken. Episode 2, she's broken out. Episode 3, she's taken again. Episode 4, she's broken out. Why? This could have been so much cut down. You could have just done that arc once. You had to do it twice. Another problem with the show is that it just looks cheap. Even though it has a big budget, the problem is that it feels cheap because we have to constantly go back to the same environments because they can't afford to keep having brand new worlds. That's why one of the planets is just California. This also makes it feel like the budget was stretched really thin. Now, that isn't the cast or the director's fault, but it just shows that the problem was just in the fundamental format the story was told in. I think a lot of the problems with this show are on a fundamental level, with the fact that it doesn't need to be a TV show. Ever since Solo, Disney has been shivering at the idea of doing another spin-off Star Wars movie since that one bombed at the box office. But if there was one to do it, I think this would have been a perfect project to do that for. A film showing Obi-Wan's last mission he has to do while being hunted by Inquisitors and ends up near Vader would have been awesome. And that would have fixed a lot of the problems because then they could have had better pacing and more money per minute. Some stories are meant for different formats. The Mandalorian is perfect for a TV show because he goes to a new planet every episode. But the story for Obi-Wan is a story perfect for a movie. And they just had that script, I think, if they just stretched it into a 6-hour TV show. And I mean, it would have been awesome to have a movie because the best part of this show are all the actors that are returning and the fact that this show really tries to make a focus on the past between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen are great back in these roles, and these moments are the best part of the show, and it's not even close. But the show never feels fully committed to that idea of the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin and his failure because it has to stuff so much other stuff in for the TV show runtime. And when it does tackle the things you want to see, it hits all the basic points on the rubric of what fans want to see in an Obi-Wan solo adventure. While you do see fights between Obi-Wan and Vader, and they're good enough, I think they could have done better because you don't really remember any of these fights super well. I mean, honestly, in the show, there's like only one scene I really remember well. There aren't a lot of standout moments. They could have done subtle things to make these scenes more interesting. Maybe have a fight on a more interesting planet. I don't need to be Mustafar, but it could have just been like some different planet. The fact that it's just like rock planets for their final fight is kind of underwhelming. I'm not saying these fights are just completely horrible. They're cool ideas, and yeah, Obi-Wan fights Vader, and we see flashbacks to their training, and that's awesome. And there's some really cool ideas on paper, like Vader's throne, the Inquisitor base, but those aren't as interesting due to pretty static directing because of how limited these actors are because of the volume they have to work on. And I think the fact that they had to use the volume is another part of how much money they had. They didn't have enough money to actually go get crazy big budgets to make crazy cool plans. They had to work on this small volume set. And that hindrance of it being a TV show hinders the directing, and that leads to the direction not being as strong and not coming through as much when we watch the show. It might sound like I'm hating on this show, but I think it does enough things right. The acting is pretty good. There's some really good looking sets, even if they look static. And I was interested the entire time, but this could have been so much more if they just taken this back to the drawing board and really tightened this show up because it feels extremely lifeless. Or even better if they had taken the show and just turned it into a movie. Or if they really had to stick this to a TV show, I think it would have been better if they cut it down to like 3 or 4 episodes. It's so sad they got everyone back to make something that should be really special but just ends up being mediocre. You have all these incredible actors like Ewan McGregor, and even getting Hayden to play Darth Vader and Anakin is really cool. I am by no means a prequel fan, but even I realize how neat of a situation this is, and I don't think they fully utilized this opportunity. The show easily had the most potential to be something truly excellent with sparks of it being shown, and when these moments happen, the show truly shines.
Huh?
But it is never consistent enough to keep having these excellent moments because it's too long. There isn't enough substance to sustain a show of this length. Every amazing moment is with Vader and Obi-Wan, and I just wish we could have gotten a really tight, amazing movie about them instead of this bloated show. This show is nowhere as bad as some people are saying it is because it is competent enough and does enough right. This show isn't incredible. It's a show bursting with potential that just ends up being okay, even with its excellent premise. So I'd give Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 1 a 5 out of 10. If you're wondering why I called it Season 1, I don't know if there's going to be a Season 2, but the ending kind of implied there might be, so I'm just going to go with it. Anyways, I got more videos in the work. I got this really cool Jurassic Park video coming up, along with a video that you guys might like. It's completely out there. It's one of my retrospectives. Anyways, when those videos come out, I'll see you then. Bye.